Hello, and welcome back to the AI Insiders Podcast, the flagship podcast of open, then not open, then open again AI. No, wait, not open. No, open again, wait. If you don't get this reference, then this podcast is for you. And if you do get this reference, then this podcast is for you. Because either group will especially appreciate the importance of understanding the humans behind AI. Which is why, no matter who you are, I'm glad you're taking some time to join us here and come along with me to learn more about some of the humans behind AI at ISI, that is the Information Sciences Institute. Hi, I'm Adam Russell. I'm the director of the AI division at the Information Sciences Institute here at University of Southern California, and I'm your host for the AI Insiders Podcast. On this podcast, I continue to test my hypothesis that if we want to know more about AI, where it might be headed, how it might impact us, we ought to start with understanding the people who are in the AI trenches, so to speak, because they're just as interested in trying to understand the world we're moving into, and they have the chance to try and help make sure it ends up being a better world for all of us. So I'm taking this opportunity to talk with some of these humans, whom I'm proud to call my colleagues, to learn more about not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it. And maybe, in the process, have them give us a glimpse of what kind of journey they're on as a clue to the journey we're all on. Maybe. So today, I'm fortunate to have as our fellow traveler, Mayank Kejriwal. He's a research assistant professor of industrial and systems engineering at the Viterbi School of Engineering here at the University of Southern California. And I'm glad to say a principal scientist at ISI. Mayank, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. We're going to get into a whole lot of stuff about you. But I always want to pause up front and give you the opportunity to do something I've always wanted to do, and that is to go back in time. There are many things I would do differently, but in this case, I'm taking you back in time, and I'm introducing you to your 10-year-old self. And I'm going to sit back and watch you explain to your 10-year-old self, what are you doing in AI? And we'll go from there.
Oh, man. Well, I would tell my 10-year-old self that I am trying to build a Star Trek computer that I was so fascinated by, just watching reruns of Star Trek Voyager. And I recognized that that was my first exposure to what we would now call AI. And I would just tell my 10-year-old self, we're building the Star Trek computer and we're getting closer to it every day.
Okay, so 10-year-old Mayank says, well, why, other than just being cool, why are you trying to build this computer? Like, what is it going to do for us?
Run spaceships, talk to us, make hot chocolate once we have the replicator, and just all kinds of things. But yeah, it's almost like another human, right? It's a fellow traveler. I know my 10-year-old self would be really excited by that because it just seems so human-like. And there was a human voice, behind that computer. Interestingly enough, with Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, I think it was his wife who was the voice of the computer for a very long time. And so he obviously took that very seriously. Yeah.
That's interesting. And now I don't want to suggest that you are a skeptic. You are a scientist. So you have healthy skepticism. Yeah. My suspicion is you may have even had that as a 10-year-old. So let me ask on behalf of your 10-year-old, do your 10-year-old self and explain how that's going to play out. So how are you going to get from 10 to where you are now and working on, this amazing technology?
Yeah, the 10-year-old self is a weirdo, so he likes to read. He has interesting friends. He's stubborn. He's not the kind of guy who sits at the front, of the classroom, not at all. And so I think the 10-year-old self would be like, well, I think you're going to, just go after a lot of different things. And who knows, you might just land in the right spot. And, that is what happened. So it's just an adventure. I think there's something to be said for being impulsive and adventurous and not planning too much, in life. And I think the 10-year-old self and I would probably agree on that. So.
That's interesting. So it sounds like you're willing to, and credit to you, willing to acknowledge a certain amount of luck and serendipity has played a role. What do you feel have been sort of your biggest, luckiest breaks to date?
I think taking the intro to AI class, in undergrad, because I was not a CS major, I was an ECE major. And I just had Star Trek views of AI. I did not know about the rigors and the kind of algorithms, et cetera, that went into AI. And that totally changed my view on this. I was just exposed to this whole new world. And I think that, after that, I had discovered something that I really wanted to do and that I didn't know anything about, but I enjoyed reading and writing and thinking. And that was the way to go. And I would say that it's those minor moments that you don't appreciate at the time, which totally end up changing your life path.
Here. Even if we tend to want to tell a nice linear story in retrospect, I'm impressed that you aren't. You're okay with like the nonlinearity. Well, given that serendipity and luck has played such an important role in your life, if someone were looking to get into AI, what would you recommend they do other than just be lucky?
So one thing I would tell them is no matter what field they go into, in computer science, math, physical sciences, social sciences even, I think it's important to have very strong, fundamental, rigorous skills. And I would also recommend that they seek out new experiences, to kind of paraphrase the Star Trek motto. And I do think that you do have to get a little bit lucky, but it's also important to be adventurous. And to go into new directions. And I think somehow, I just believe that we find our way to the things that appeal to us. I'm thinking about my colleagues at ISI, right? Some of whom have trained in physics, in other fields, some in math, I believe. And so there are just so many ways to get into AI.
And anthropology, as it turns out.
Yeah, there you go.
Although I'm with you on the rigor part. Well, let me then ask, what do you think is going to be the impact of AI on education? Is it going to help make things worse or meh? Like, what do you reckon?
I'm divided on it, to be honest. I mean, I'm teaching this semester and, we were faced with this decision, right, on what to do about ChatGPT. So what should be our policy on ChatGPT in the classroom? I decided at the very beginning that I would not stop the students from using ChatGPT, and they are free to do that, but with a couple of caveats. So one is that they have to acknowledge ChatGPT whenever they've used it. It's very simple acknowledgement, and they are responsible for the content. So they cannot come back and say, well, ChatGPT produced this. And so if you're saying the answer is wrong, then it's ChatGPT's fault. We're like, no, you're responsible for the content. That being said, in the final exam, I am not allowing internet resources of any kind, including ChatGPT. So I'm like, if you want to forget all the fundamentals we're teaching you and then just go and return to ChatGPT and use it for everything in your professional life, that is your decision as an adult. But as instructors, we bear the responsibility that we should do our best to force you to learn some of the fundamentals.
Right. Yeah. So it's an open question of, how to engage, these tools. There are people who feel that with the accelerating nature of AI, and let's call it generative AI particularly, the universities may be losing their relevance to some degree. I know we don't believe that, but explain to your 10-year-old self, like why is ending up at a university still a good thing in the future when all we hear about is, for example, OpenAI, for example?
Well, I'm not sure I would actually disagree with the claim that the universities would be losing their relevance if they don't adapt, right? I mean, it's the same for every organization. They do have to adapt. And I feel that sometimes we avoid talking about that or acknowledging that at our own peril. I've seen statistics from the Chronicle of Higher Education and other sources showing that a lot of Americans, for example, are starting to believe less and less in the value of a college degree and in the university, and they're upset by the levels of tuition and so on. And I think that some of those claims need to be taken seriously, right? And so I think these are all moments of self-reflection, and we can kind of kick the can down the road. But in the end, we need to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of the university, and why are we in the university, and who else do we depend on? So I don't think it will become irrelevant, but the people, the universities that take on that challenge and answer those questions in a bona fide, good faith manner and adapt accordingly will be the ones to survive in the long run.
What do you worry the most about with AI?
I don't worry about it, which is kind of an unpopular view. And I'll tell you why, because, as I tell my students, there are so few things I believe in, to be honest. But one of the things I believe in is the human race. And I just think that the human race, despite all its tragedies, and as you as an anthropologist know this way better than I do, we've come this far, and there's no guarantee that we will survive, in the future. But I think there's something about us. We are an aggressive species, which is both a good and a bad thing, but we have an instinct for survival. And I do believe that. And we see hints of that in Star Trek, interestingly enough, where the human beings, right? I mean, when they have to play dirty, they really do play dirty. Even in there's an episode in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is like inter arma enim silent legis, which is like a Latin phrase for came from Caesar, that in times of war, the law falls silent. And it's a very dark episode. But to me, what stood out about the episode was that for better or for worse, the human race, when we have to play dirty, we do play dirty because we need to survive. We need to dominate. This is not always a good thing. I'm not saying it is, but I believe in the human race. So I don't believe AI stands a chance against us. And this is kind of an unpopular view, but AI has a long way to go to beat the dark recesses in the human heart.
Oh man. Well, okay. I'm with you. It's there for a reason, right? To some degree. So go team human. At the same time, as you point out, humans are perfectly good at killing each other, oftentimes in several ways. Do you think AI has any role to play in terms of our being able to better coordinate and deal with what really concerns me is empathy at scale? Like there's so many of us.
Yeah.
That the notion that I'm going to understand and be able to collaborate and coordinate with that many people seems impossible now. And yet it also seems like it's utterly critical if we're going to survive this.
So I think in big sectors of society that will happen, especially in civic society. But I am a follower of Machiavelli, at the end of the day, and I do think that this will be weaponized. There's no question about it. It's only a matter of time. I wish that weren't the case. I want the Star Trek world, where there's no war and poverty. And I do believe eventually we will get there. I think eventually we will get to the Star Trek world where we're using technology for good by and large. But I think that AI, there's a reason why these conversations on safety and so on are very important. And I don't think we can just rely on the good graces of human beings in power in different countries and organizations and companies to not weaponize it. They will weaponize it. And so we need safeguards. And that's an open discussion, right? That what are the safeguards and what should we do? And I am certainly not qualified to opine on that, except that it needs to be binding and it does need to be taken seriously, but not because AI will go rogue. I think the real reason is human beings will weaponize AI.
I think that's right. Yeah. I do want to step in briefly and just say, I want to correct you when you say you're not qualified to opine on this. First of all, you're very good at opining, but I think from what I can see from the discussions around the safeties, on the contrary, not only are you very qualified to opine and contribute, but we need more people in this discussion, right? We need more people like you, in fact, to be part of this discussion, rather than, to your point, having small numbers of people sort of try to determine that for us. So
thank you.
Don't write yourself off, please. I want to include you in this discussion. What have you been most surprised by AI? Either something you didn't think it could do that it could do, or something you thought it would be able to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. I remember I was the whole reason why I came into AI was because I was attracted by what we now call artificial general intelligence, right? And very quickly, it became very clear to me when I started doing research and then eventually went and did the PhD right after my undergrad, that's just a pipe dream. You have to choose a narrow problem. And so many of us did choose a narrow problem. And then, ChatGPT obviously came out and has totally modified my opinion on that, I think, along with many others. But now I think AGI is a very real possibility. I think it's only a matter of when, not if. It could be coming in less than 5 years. So I'm excited by that. I think we need a science of AGI, science of AI and science of AGI are intimately related. And I would love to be one of the professors who guides one of the first students to write a thesis related to AGI. I would love to do that. Maybe it will be one of my current students. I won't be the only one. I'm sure there will be others who will go down that path as well, but I would love to be among the first where I can make the claim many years later that that's the thing I'm proud of, that I, helped a student or guided one of my first PhD students as a young faculty to write an AGI thesis.
I'm a big fan of thinking of contributions in that way, outside of the normal sort of incentive structures of the university, because that's where credit gets due. this is a bit of a thought experiment. Let's say, congratulations, Mayank. I'm going to introduce you to your AGI. You've created it, but for some reason, it doesn't really understand the humans it's dealing with. And you can give this AGI, by the way, what would you name your AGI?
What would I name it? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Maybe I
Right.
should.
There you go. I'll get back to you on that. Because I was also going to ask, what voice would you give the AGI? I mean, Gene Roddenberry chose his wife.
Oh, yes, I know the
Who do you
answer.
want?
Wait,
Okay,
I'm
that?
so glad you asked that, because your second question primed the first one, right? It's interesting how the brain works. I mean, I would call the AGI White Queen after the Alice in Wonderland, and because I was just thinking of Resident Evil, the Red Queen and the White Queen.
Okay, but you're talking to the White Queen, your AGI,
Yeah.
and you have the opportunity to give it sort of one cultural artifact, a book, a movie, a story that you say, like, here, read or consume this, and this will give you a deeper insight into the kind of creatures you're dealing with, humans. What would that be?
Well, can I answer which book I would not give her?
Okay, we start with that. Yeah.
The book I would not give her is my most favorite novel of all time, which is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I read that novel when I was in high school, and that's the moment I became a decadent. So when people actually ask me, well, what's your philosophical take, or what are you? Like, are you a pacifist? I'm like, no, I'm a decadent. I am a hardcore, decadent, no question about it. I've read all the decadent books, Heisman's Against Nature and so on. So I would not give the White Queen The Picture of Dorian Gray. I would not want the AI to become decadent.
All right, we'll answer with a negative, unless you have something that, I mean, because you study the humanities a lot. All right, let me ask this question. What is your sort of own personal relationship with AI right now? Do you use it as a tool? I imagine you do.
Yes.
And if you project that out, do you think you could ever have AI as like a best friend or
no,
or teammate or partner? No. Okay.
Well, teammate, yes. I mean, in the sense that, like, at what point does an assistive tool, right, really start becoming a teammate? And I can imagine taking that leap. But yeah, I just, I believe in the human race, right? And so I kind of come back to that. And this is not a competition between the AI and the human race, but there's something, I think, that the human spirit, right, does have a spark. I think we see this in all the great religions. I don't see an AI or a society of AIs, a group of AIs even, coming up with something like the world's great religions. Religion is a great source of art, right? And so even if you don't believe in the religion, you don't have to believe in religion. But I hear someone like Steven Pinker, who is otherwise very smart, and some of the, the hyper rationalists, as I call them, and they just think that it's a bug in the human brain. It's not a feature. I'm like, this is the feature. This is what makes us human. These having these great works of art and literature and religion, and you can't just, I don't believe that you can feed all of that into a machine and get that kind of spark. It can create individual works of art, and that I'm willing to give it that, and I believe in that. But entire movements, like Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism, with all their sculptures and the works of art and the books and the religion and the figures and all of that, I don't see AI creating that. A team of AI is creating that.
Is what Harari calls collective fictions. Is kind of our superpower as a species.
Yes.
You also had me thinking about the Nietzsche quote of be careful when you're casting out demons, because you might cast out the most important and best thing about you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Mayank, we're coming up on time. I want to get you back to the very important work you're doing, which is to make sure we all end up on the Starship Enterprise in a better world. Again, I just count myself completely lucky that I get to have people like you that I get to call colleagues. And I look very forward to continuing to work alongside you and let me do my best to quote Captain Kirk here, as we set a chart or set a course for the second star on the right and carry on till morning.
Oh, that is perfect.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much. To our listeners, if you enjoy these short podcasts, please do that thing. Like us, give us stars, more stars, no more stars, no little more stars. Spread the word, send us feedback, and just keep listening. Join us again as well, please, for another episode of AI Insiders, where we will continue to navigate our way through this weird world, trying to do what humans do best, I think, when they face these kinds of challenges, working together as if all our lives depend on each other, because they do. So for now, and for the future, Fight on.